Hey guys, welcome back to another video. In this one, I'm going to be going through glyphs. Some of the stuff at the start of this video might be a bit basic for some people who've been playing for a while. So what I'll do is I'll put some timestamps in the description to navigate you around the video on what I'm talking about in case you don't want to go through the early stuff. So we'll start from the beginning and we'll just talk about glyph sets. Now on the left here you can see all the different glyph sets that there are in the game. And when I say sets, a set is when you have 3 of a glyph type on your monster. So on the right here of this screen, you can see that my diva here has 3 precision glyphs and 3 haste glyphs. So that's a set of precision and a set of haste. And just below the glyphs, you can see that once that's speed plus 10 and accuracy plus 20, once you see those there, that means you have completed the set. Now, for these sets, they don't have to be in any order. Like you could have, as I do, the 2 top ones and a middle one, or 2 middle ones and a top one, or 1 of each. Doesn't matter how they lay out, as long as you've got 3 of something, that makes the set. You can also have 6 of it, and you get 2 times that set bonus. And then to find out what the different glyphs are and what they provide, on the left here you can see that they say bonus to whatever they get, but if you want to get the specifics of what they do, you just click on that set, and below those glyphs you'll see this one, defense plus 20%. So that's how you find out exactly what the bonus you're going to get from your sets is. The next thing we look at is quality. The quality of glyphs is basically the color of them. So every glyph you get at the start will be 1 star. There is no 2, 3, 4 star glyph drops. 1 star is what they all start at. They gain stars as they power up. So that's what that is. Don't worry about stars when you're getting glyphs. The quality is all about the color. So the quality from worst to best is grey, blue, green, yellow, then purple. So purple are the really good ones that you want to aim for later game. But that's the quality cycle, and basically the difference in them is the value that the main stat being that top stat that you see on every glyph, and the substats, which are the ones all below that. So in this glyph, for instance, your main stat is the speed at 25, the substat is the crit damage HP, accuracy HP, and crit percent. Basically, if you have a blue glyph, it's going to have a much lower base stat and substats than a purple glyph. So basically higher quality means better stats. The next thing I want to talk about is those main stats and substats. So for the top 2 glyphs, the hexagonal glyphs, they can have either speed, attack percent, defense percent, flat attack, flat defense, and flat HP. That's what you can get for a main stat on those 2 glyphs. The middle ones, the square ones, you can have crit percentage, you can have crit damage, HP percentage, flat attack, flat defense, and flat HP. And then for the bottom ones, the sort of teardrop looking ones, we'll just call them circle for now, they can have resistance and accuracy, then attack percent, HP percent, defense percent, flat attack, and flat HP. So just keep that as a little guide for yourself when you're looking at stats, because something early game that I find when you're working with your lower level monsters, you really want to beef up their defense for dungeons, and just keeping in mind that normally early game they're going to want flat defense glyphs and speed normally on top, so you can't get those flat defense on the bottom, so you got to try and keep in mind that you don't want to put HP on the 2 middle ones because you can't get that flat defense on the bottom ones. Just that sort of thing. If you just look at that little guide, you sort of know what to look for when you're trying to build your glyph sets on your monsters going forward. Another thing I wanted to cover about substats is that when you get a glyph at level 1, they can have a random amount of substats. So you can have anywhere from 1 to 5 substats, and that they don't always necessarily mean they're going to be different substats. So I've got one here that I'll use for a quick example for you, which is, I believe it's this precision glyph here. So the max roll you can get on a substat of speed is 4. So this glyph only has one substat being speed, but it's had 3 rolls into it, meaning it's had speed rolled into it. It was the originally speed, then another 4 speed, and then a 3 speed. So that's how it's got its total 11 speed, by having 3 rolls. So it's actually a 3 substat glyph, but only one different substat. But from what I've found anyway, the total can only equal 5. So you can have one with three rolls into it, and then 2 with 1 roll, and that's your 5 substats. You're not going to get more than that. Next, just quickly, I wanted to cover where you actually get your glyphs for the newer players. Early on, it's going to be just in the Shattered Islands here. You go through your floating islands, ice caves, all that sort of thing. These are just your scenarios. They drop weaker quality glyphs. Once you get to Nightmare, you can get yellow. You can see on the right here, you can get yellow, green, and blue. They normally have only 1 or 2 substats. They're not great glyphs. It's just very early game stuff. Once you get later into the game, you can go into the Dragon Mist Isles and then go into the Glyph Dungeon. And normally, for most people, it's easiest to start at the Wrath Dungeon, which is the middle one here. And you can see as you go through the levels, on the right hand side, the quality of glyphs you can get increases. So at 4 you can start getting yellow glyphs, and then at 6 you can start getting the purple glyphs. But the rate of the purple glyphs is lower at level 6, obviously, than it will be at level 10. Level 10 you have a much better chance to get those purple glyphs. And so there is the 3 different dungeons, and each one drops 4 different types of glyphs. So the Wrath has Precision, Haste, Lifesteal, and Appeasement. Benefit has Vitality, Defense, Endurance, and Immunity. And the Strength Dungeon has Attack, Crit Damage, Crit Rate, and Meditation glyphs. So those are the different ones you can get and where to get them. Moving on to powering up glyphs. I spoke about substats earlier. So when we look at a glyph, as we power it up, every stage that a glyph powers up, it will gain an increase to the main stat. So in this one, for instance, is speed. Every power up we do to it will give an increase to speed. And the thing about powering up is, as your glyphs get to a higher level, they will become harder to power up. So that was actually fairly quick for a level 13 to 14. And you can see that sometimes it takes up to 1,000,000 just to do that power up, but this one's been getting lucky. So, but the other thing that happens is every 3 levels, so at 4, 7, 10, 13, and 16, you will get an additional substat. And that can be either a roll into an existing substat or a new substat. And while we're talking about this, the maximum number of rolls you can have into a substat is 3. So for a purple glyph with speed, 4 being the max roll, the max speed you can have on a purple glyph is 12. So that applies for all substats. You can only have a maximum of 3 rolls into it. And if you don't get your max roll, so a purple speed, we'll just keep using that for an example, can have either 3 or 4 speed. If you get 2 rolls of 3 and 1 of 4, you end up on 10. That's all you can get. You can't get that extra roll into it, so you're just stuck with what you got. You can't even get up to that 12. But as I was saying, as you're powering up, you can either get a power up into the same substat or a different substat. And I've got a couple here as an example. So this first glyph we're looking at, I go through the first 3 power-ups of it. And the first one hits the flat HP, which is an existing substat. The second one hits speed, also existing. And the third one also hits HP again. So those first 3 power-ups were all into existing substats. But then if we go to this second glyph, which also has 3 substats, you can see that my first power-up is actually a new substat being accuracy. So there's no control saying that it has to go through the existing substats first with the power-ups or anything like that. It's just completely random. And also the substat can be the same as the main stat. So some people think that you can't get the same sub as a main stat, but you can. It can be any stat can be the substat on any glyph. And the final thing I was going to talk about is on the main stats. A common question is whether you use percentage or flat glyphs. Up on the screen I've got a table that I worked out from one of my other videos. I have a video that explains how I worked out these numbers that you can use to judge off your base stat, and then if it's below, you want to take flat. If it's above, you want to take percentage. These numbers are based off of purple glyphs, but I didn't want to get too complicated. If you're more curious about how I worked all that out, I'll leave a link to the video in the description as well, and you can check that out. And the devs have been patching in changes to the stat values of the flat stats, like in the last patch they did HP and attack. So keep an eye out for that. This is relevant as of patch 1.62. If it changes again, I'll upload videos and I'll change the links in the description to help you guys. But yeah, just keep an eye out for that. Everything else will stay relevant throughout, but just in case they do make changes, just keep an eye out and stay updated. That's about all I wanted to cover without going too crazy into glyphs. I hope that gives people a good idea, especially new players starting, a bit overwhelmed with the glyphs. That's the basics behind it, and I'm hoping that can give you a bit of a base to work off going forward in the game. Feel free to leave me a comment if there's anything I missed that you want me to cover, and yeah, any other thoughts you have or videos you'd like me to make, just let me know. And once again, thanks for watching guys, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Cheers.